conservatives are coming after Superman after director James Gunn said in an interview that Superman is an immigrant that came from other places and populated the country, and that he's the story of America.
And so it just makes you want to ask yourself, is this new Superman movie woke or not? Well, guess what? I watched it, and I'm going to give you my honest thoughts and opinions. Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I am dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to discuss whether or not Superman is woke, or if he can represent well the Catholic virtues. And why is this important? Because we all need superheroes in our life, and in reality, we know that they exist. We call them saints. But in this case, I have to admit, I grew up watching Superman. As a kid, I was fascinated by him. He's certainly my favorite superhero of all times. But in today's world, it has become political, in fact, divisive. And is that actually the case with this most recent edition of Superman? Well, let's discuss it, because I think it'll be helpful for you as parents or even just as family members to talk about these things that everybody else is talking about, but in a Catholic way. So before we jump into it, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. It's the only way we can overcome the algorithms that want to suppress good Catholic, practical, pastoral content. And again, we can only do shows like this with your support. So please consider going to patreon.com/thefatherleo show. There you get access to some really great perks, as well as some special content. So right now, let's just jump right into it with whether or not Superman is becoming woke, or if he can become a Catholic ideal of a saint. So just leave it up to this modern world to just make everything political. And the producer, Mr. Gunn, he talked about how this was a political film. And so there's actually a bunch of things online that are either encouraging you to watch Superman if you think that it's about time Superman became woke, or discouraging you from watching it because people don't want to go to a movie to have politics shoved down their throat. In the same way, people would say the same thing about the Catholic Church. And in fact, I've been accused, but incorrectly and obviously proven false, that I'm trying to push a political agenda. And I'm clearly not. I'm simply taking the things that people are talking about in the modern world, but talking about it with a Catholic perspective, to try to provide some sort of pastoral care for the flock who has to maneuver through these troubled times. And in these difficult times, thankfully, we had in our at least American tradition this idea of superheroes, these meta-humans who would walk with us, be of support to us, weak human beings, and even not only help us, but to some degree, even save us. And so it was very discouraging for me to see this post come through on social media. Now, do I take it for true or not? That's why I'm doing a video like this, an episode to discuss whether or not we can trust the internet in describing and how it describes things that are very popular, like superheroes. So check this out.
Is Superman super woke?
MAGA conservatives are coming after Superman after director James Gunn said in an interview that Superman is an immigrant that came from other places and populated the country, and that he's the story of America.
You know what it says on his cape? MS-13.
We don't go to the movie theater to be lectured to and to have somebody throw their ideology onto us. I wonder if it'll be successful.
He's creating a moat of woke, enlightened opinion around him.
But DC fans are saying that Superman has always been an immigrant, and that superhero comics have always been political, since he was an alien who grew up in Kansas as a refugee.
I'm an illegal immigrant, Mom.
Actor Nathan Fillion, who plays the Green Lantern, said this to Variety in an interview after the backlash.
Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys.
But that's why people are asking.
And so it just makes you want to ask yourself, is this new Superman movie woke or not? Well, guess what? I watched it, and I'm going to give you my honest thoughts and opinions, because it'll be helpful for you to determine whether or not, first of all, you want to watch this film, because I can't stop you, and I cannot encourage you. I'm simply going to take, again, a Catholic priest perspective who is, in a sense, a little nerdy and geeky, and that I enjoy watching superhero films. Now, I grew up watching it, and so it's kind of part of my upbringing. And so I'm just going to give you my honest take. First of all, please know, I don't want this to be a movie review. It's not a movie review. This has nothing to do on the merits of the movie itself. This is whether or not it is true that Superman in this version is woke, or if there are some Catholic salient things that you can maybe talk with your children about should you watch this film. There are many good reviews of this, even some Catholic reviews of this film. It's a PG-13 film, and just seeing things like this, whenever you hear people say MAGA Americans or MAGA conservatives, you can just tell that this person who made this particular video, asking the question in the first place, is trying to make it political. And it's so frustrating to me that everything, including now superheroes, have become political. But I have to say that compared to what the producer, Mr. Gunn, talked about, or the director, versus what actually happened, I'm just going to let you know what my experience was. The movie was a little bit of a mess. I mean, there were storylines and subplots just everywhere. I was grateful that it didn't go through the whole, secret romance between Clark Kent, aka Superman, and Lois Lane. And by the way, if this is a spoiler alert, then I don't know under what rock you've been living, but this is a movie that actually kind of takes place after he and Lois Lane come to understanding that they are attracted to each other. And so there is a dynamic between her as a very skeptical person, a journalist at heart, but also with a little bit of an edge, versus this Kansas City raised good, God-fearing Christian man. Now, is he Christian? I don't know, but if it's a traditional kind of Kansas City mentality, probably was Christian. And so it kind of takes place in the middle of it all. And of course, because this world is just not exciting enough, we have to enter in different universes that are kind of colliding into this one city of Metropolis, where literally all hell breaks loose. And I mean, if I lived in Metropolis, I would move completely quickly. But there is kind of a focus on his immigrant status, because obviously it's something that everybody is talking about. But there's also implications with world wars. There's two countries, one is very powerful and it's kind of taking over the other. And so you can even see vestiges or at least traces of wars between a powerful country, say like Russia, versus a less powerful but equally corrupt government as Ukraine. And so you see how they're trying to say who's right, who's wrong here. And so it could have been political, but I can honestly say it wasn't as political as it was made out to be. In fact, I was actually very impressed, not with the movie itself, because I thought the movie was just a hot mess with a lot of subplots and just so much CGI, nothing is believable anymore. And as far as the acting is concerned, I have to say Lex Luthor did a pretty great job. And I even say that this Superman was excellent. Now, I was a fan of Christopher Reeves when he was the kind of original motion picture Superman that I saw on the big screen, and just absolutely fascinated by Superman watching that particular movie when it came out on, ready for this, VHS tapes multiple times, because it was just awesome as a kid to do that. Now that I'm older, I'm looking at this with a little bit more of a critical eye. Will I watch this movie again? Probably not. Just way too much going on and just so unbelievable. But here's what now I appreciate. Well, first of all, they introduced a bunch of new characters that I didn't even know about. Characters from different universes that all sort of come together, and they're going to form what is, we know as kids, to be the Justice League. And they're still determining what they're going to call this organization of metahumans, superheroes, people who want to use their powers to do good things. And there is a very touching scene in all of this where somebody raises a flag, and you figure it's going to be the flag of say, the country that they're trying to protect. And again, this is not trying to be a spoiler alert, but this is a little bit of a spoiler alert. So warning now. But they raise a flag and it has the Superman insignia. You know, that famous kind of almost diamond shape S in the middle of it. And I appreciated that because it was more about the ideals of Superman. Now, there is a unique plot twist in that Superman is confronted with his own origins and his own identity. You know, was he sent here to this Earth filled with a bunch of weak humans who are very impressionable and we have no real superpower? Was he here to protect and serve us or to lord over us? And this is a question that we all have to ask ourselves. At one point, there is a great line that the actor will say to Lex Luthor, who just doesn't seem to obviously like Superman, probably a lot of jealousies about him, and maybe even has a negative impression that somehow because you're good at something, you're not vulnerable. And in this particular version, Superman was incredibly vulnerable, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen before. But here's what I actually liked about this superhuman movie. This movie about a man with superhuman strength, and he chose to use it for good. And he even uses it on a terrible show like The View. Check this out.
What would you like people to take away after they've seen it?
I mean, it might be too much to ask, but just what you described about looking inward and wondering, is there something more I could be doing? Could I be a little kinder to people? Could I take a little more responsibility for myself, for my family, for my loved ones? Could I be somebody who shows up in a moment of crisis or of uncertainty and say, I'll take care of this situation? Superman obviously has these big superpowers and can take care of quite a lot, but it's amazing what little moments of human beings saying, it's okay, I'll take care of this, we'll do for the world.
Superpowers just look different.
Yeah.
Chooses to walk among people. He could do anything. He's the most powerful being in the universe. He could do anything, but he chooses to walk among people, and he chooses to do good and be kind.
Yeah.
And I think we'd love for people to walk out of the movie feeling entertained. There's tons of action and really fun stuff, but also a little hopeful. We could definitely use that.
And then, of course, the people in The View applaud because they have a producer encouraging everyone to applaud for all of these nice little sound bites. But here's where I am questioning this. There are people on the left side of things who will say this movie should be shoved in the face of all of these conservatives because they need to learn something about Superman and how he was kind and compassionate. And he was an immigrant, so, are you going to get rid of him because he came from another planet and doesn't have any documentation? Well, first of all, it's a silly it's silly and completely illogical in its train of thoughtlessness. Superman didn't come here in mass migration. He didn't come here illegally. His world was destroyed. Now, again, I'm trying to make fact out of something that's so irrational, but to compare the two is like comparing like apples to a turkey. It's two completely different things. At the same time, what people fail to recognize, and again, we're talking about a Hollywood film here, so that there's always going to be a little bit of an agenda to it all, saying that this movie should be watched by people who are conservative because they need to learn the values of Superman. Well, Superman's values are very conservative, and I'm not taking sides here because I'm just kind of going through the facts. He was raised in Kansas. His mom and dad were very simple, humble, poor people. And you even heard from this actor himself how the values of Superman are simple. They're rooted in humble things and humility. If you can do good, be accountable for your own actions, care for your neighbors. These are the values of a Midwesterner. And they are beautiful values. In fact, it's interesting that most of the superheroes come from traditional values. Traditional values. Now, why did I want to show this clip regarding a show, namely The View, which I would never be able to watch a full episode because it is so woke. But they were trying to put this Superman character on here and try to make it political. And thankfully, the actors did a much better job than, say, like a Rachel Ziegler, who completely destroyed the new Snow White film from like a year or two ago, and how she just was so vitriolic in her anger towards anyone who had traditional values. She wanted to dismantle the patriarchy and show that Snow White was a completely different person than the traditional storyline. But the Lois Lane character talks about, here's the most powerful being, she says in the universe, but that would be God. But I know what she means. The most powerful being, at least on earth. And he chose to walk among us. Here's where the Catholic connection comes. He sounds an awful lot like a Christ figure. In fact, every superhero is a Christ figure. Someone who has a unique gift, but also is willing to sacrifice themselves for the other, using their gifts and talents at service for the other, never to lord it over them, but rather to use it for the good of all. These are the values that I think is why this movie is going to be the summer blockbuster in 2025. And it's going to last because, again, people are going to continue to watch it on demand, or they're going to stream it. I would certainly watch it again if I was on a plane and there was nothing really else interesting to watch. In the same way, I have watched many superhero movies on plane rides, on long plane rides, simply because while it is silly and obviously ridiculous, and it might speak of my, say, immaturity when it comes to, theater and entertainment. By the way, I like some good acting as well. In this case, there was actually some pretty good acting, I would have to say. But here's why I like this movie. And it's not an endorsement for you to watch it, nor is this an endorsement for you to not watch it. It is rated PG-13 because there are some curse words and there is a very graphic, violent scene. Something that actually surprised me, but it became more believable in terms of Superman's goodness, the character of Superman, and his compassion and love for humanity. I mean, his job is to kind of make sure that he saves the world and make sure that humans do not get hurt. But here's why I like it, because it reminds me of something that C.S. Lewis has said. C.S. Lewis is obviously a great Christian author, philosopher, theologian who makes Christianity very practical. And he says something about superheroes and powers and people who have meta-human strength and what they do with it. Here's what he says. Since it is so likely that children will meet cruel enemies, let them at least have heard of brave knights and heroic courage. Otherwise, you are making their destiny not brighter, but darker. It's a great line for all of us who need to understand why these superhero movies are so important for children, but why you as parents and grandparents need to be able to have a discussion with your children after you watch these films, and to make sure that you can separate the character fiction, the fictional character, versus the actor. Because what's so surprising, and I don't know if this is the case with this current Superman, he seems like a genuinely good man, nice guy, clearly Superman looking. But so many superheroes who on screen represent values that are traditional. They personally hold beliefs that are so sometimes anti-American in sentiment and, dare I even say it, so woke it makes it hard to watch those films. I hope to God that everyone involved in this film will stop with the political rhetoric and just focus on the good character of this Superman figure. Because if that's the case, then maybe we can become superhero ourselves. And as you heard that person on The View, our superpower is a little different. It's a little bit of an eye roll moment, but it just reminds me of something that Mother Teresa said. do small acts with great love. I hope that this episode helps. I hope that this gets you to consider, whether you watch this movie or not, to have deeper conversations about it, because clearly this movie is having an impact on everybody, on the left and on the right, and it's becoming political, and we're therefore missing the storyline and the plot, that everyone is gifted with superhuman strength. It's called faith, and when you use it at service of others, you can actually save the world. Hope that this helps. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. Tell me if you've seen the film. Would you recommend it? What did you like? What did you not like about it? As well as making sure you go to patreon.com/The Father Leo Show and consider supporting us so that we can talk about the things that everybody else is talking about, but in a positive way. And final spoiler alert. This movie is making me want to get a dog. You'll understand if you watch the film. God bless you, and stay hungry for God.